All right, welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm your host, Connor. I got my co-host, Jaden here.
Yee!
And former guest, Calvin.
Thanks for having me back.
And we're continuing Midsommar with our part 2. Very excited. I think we said this in Hereditary, our part 2 of that. It's like, if we're really fond of something, that's when you get a part 2 of it. So this is like diving deeper, a lot of the subtext, symbols, motifs, and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm ready to get this one going.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing a part 3, and then I was like, I don't want to do more work. 2 is good.
No, I think you really just want to do like a lecture on runic symbols and stuff like that. I think
have so much material now.
This is like secretly your way to introduce everyone. Like, I really just want to teach people about runes.
Yeah, exactly. So the real heart of this movie.
All right. Which we do have a section on that, which I'm interested to get into. I'm sure you picked out some good stuff for that. So
yeah, and I'll try and keep it interesting.
It's like 3 pages on the script you sent us.
But I also I copied all of the runes on there so we could see them. So like I'm just saying like T-walls, like no one knows what. So at least now we know. You don't look at me like I'm stupid for like however long I go on about this.
We should have sent out a pamphlet with the podcast. That way everyone has like the material to follow along with. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could always just link my script.
Right. No, because then everyone will know our secrets.
Yeah,
all the other podcasters will be like, "Oh, that's how they do it."
Yeah, the secret. It's a 7-page script, and where a lot of it is about the Elder Futhark.
Right. So, yeah, the first episode we talked a lot about like the camera work, the sound. Talked about the characters. So yeah, let's get more into the subtext and other stuff that's going on in this film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do want to know first off what you guys thought of the bear, like as a motif. Like we see it in a lot of images. It's in paintings. There's a literal bear. Christian gets put in the skin. There's a painting of it in Siev's house when Christian goes to talk to Siev about mating with Maya. How do those things strike you?
This might sound like kind of silly, but I think of that movie Brother Bear when I think of bears a lot.
Hell yeah, that movie's
awesome. In terms of like an archetype, not as like just a animal that exists on this planet. When I think of it and how it can like work in stories, I think a lot of that like kind of how like Native Americans interpret like how animals work in their stories, and they all have like this like kind of spiritual meaning behind them. So I kind of think about stuff like that. Like I think the bear showing up in this is more. It has like kind of more of a mystical feel to it, rather than like this is just a bear that we're going to use later in a ritual. Like it feels like it means something more to like that culture, and so I think about that when I think of the bear in this.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I don't know what it means or anything like that, but it obviously means it's something important to them.
Yeah. Okay. So this will be when I get into this, it'll start to blow your mind, because this is the fairy tale that I was referring to in part 1. So let's start first with our first introduction to the bear, and it's the painting above Danny when she's crying in her bed, and it's that little girl with patting the bear on the nose, and it's called Stackars lille Bosse by John Bauer, and he was a Swedish illustrator and painter who died in the early 1900s.
You pulled that name off so well. I'm sure that's 100% accurate.
Yeah,
I'm not even being sarcastic. I'm sure that you said that right. That was great.
I love the vocal affects of Swedish for that reason. They're very, very fun because they play with a lot of back and front mouth sounds. So yeah, it's unfortunately actually also affecting my Spanish accent sometimes. Like I'll suddenly have a Swedish accent when I'm speaking Spanish, and yeah,
Calvin's so cultured.
I'm so cultured. It's called Wikipedia, but Duolingo. Like that's the totality of my knowledge.
Still, it sounds great.
But so he did a lot of paintings of like Norse folk tales and things, and so the like Stackars lille Bosse can be best translated. I mean, you will see it translated as poor little bear. Bosse is not bear though; it is grunt, and I think that's very interesting when we think of like why it's translated that way and what the actual Swedish word means here, because I don't think there's as much, when we translate it into English, I don't think there's as much compassion for this thing now, right? Poor little bear suggests, oh, it's not something evil or bad or with any malintent, but with grunt, it's there's a few different connotations here. So I like how we've started with the foreshadowing of this image in Danny's room for the whole of the movie. And there's actually there's several instances of in Norwegian Norwegian history, Scandinavian folklore of men adorning bearskins. Specifically, you have the berserkers wearing the skins of bears. And berserkers were Viking warriors that sought to embody the qualities of the bear and become fierce warriors. And they literally they were terrifying to behold on the battlefield because they fought like actual bears. There's a Swedish death metal band called Amon Amarth. Their last album was called Berserker, and it has a man dressed in a bearskin.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, he's literally just swatting arrows off. So there's that. But you also have this idea of animals as bridegrooms in certain folk tales. So there are several Norwegian folk tales that seem to be precursors to Beauty and the Beast. And two such stories being White Bear King Velamen and East of the Sun and West of the Moon. And these stories typically depict the man as being under a witch's curse where he's able to put on and take off the bearskin at appointed times to reveal his manly form. A couple in particular have the heroine follow the man bear to the witch's house where she is forcing him to marry her. And each time the heroine tries to talk to him, he's been drugged to sleep. Very similar to how Christian is drugged to sleep at the end where they're deciding who all of the sacrifices are going to be. And so it's not until the man is warned not to take whatever food or drink is offered him before he goes to bed that they can communicate and conspire to break the curse. And I love here how Midsommar turns all of that on its head. In a lot of these folk tales, the woman is required to go on some sort of journey or perform certain tasks or act as an indentured servant, much like how she was helping the women bake at certain points throughout the film. And to do all of those things so that she can break free the man and they can be together. But here, Danny goes through all of that and can break Christian free of his curse and realizes, no, you're not worth it, because what she actually finds is herself. But it's sort of. I think that's the interpretation most people come away with. I don't think that's what this is, but a lot of people think of this as being a story of independence and self-discovery.
Yeah, I like the way you describe the story, and it sounds like the Midsommar takes aspects of that. I mean, it's not a copy-paste, let me adapt this folktale, but it does seem to have aspects of that in it, but then it's missing parts because it just wouldn't make sense in this story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I like bringing some of those elements in, and then it fits in with that culture, that kind of commune there, and that kind of that whole Nordic theme to this film. So I like that.
Which is interesting considering how this is, in America, obviously it wasn't shot in Sweden. We already talked about that, right? It was shot in Hungary.
Shot in Hungary, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily a Swedish film, but there are Swedish actors, there are Swedish, the Swedish language is spoken, but I would consider this an American film. So it's interesting that he did decide to use those archetypes and those folk tales as the basis for his stories, knowing that they aren't common for most of the audience that are going to see this film.
It's funny that you say it feels like it's like an American film, but it's Swedish people. They said when they went and saw it, they would describe it as a black comedy. They weren't offended by it, but they thought kind of the take on kind of that culture. They thought of it as being kind of morbidly funny. That's not really what we do. But this kind of I just like the idea that we watch this and we're freaking out. This is so disturbing. And they're that's what they think Swedes are like. And so I think that's kind of an interesting take that you say it's American, but it's taking place in Sweden. So.
Yeah, exactly. So there's bears are very obviously an interesting thing here, as far as foreshadowing and other things. But I also like the idea of nature here as well. Obviously, nature is very big to pagan cultures and specifically to this cult, and we see a lot of those images in Danny's apartment at the beginning. Did either of you pick up on nature as a motif before they actually leave for Sweden?
Nope.
I think mostly it's there's a bit of flower imagery is mostly kind of what I picked up on.
Yeah, so you have the There's flowers in the wallpaper in her parents' house. There's also plants all over Danny's apartment is beautifully designed because there's plants everywhere.
It's a dope place, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess she does. She has like hanging plants and stuff too. I guess, yeah, you are right.
Yeah, paintings with nature or nature themes. And there's also, I don't want to be the one to spoil it because I think this is like one of your favorite things that you pointed out, Jaden. But in the parents' bedroom, when you first see them in the first shot of the film.
Yeah, there's a flower crown around Danny's picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just wonderful. So
This
there's
reminds me of that scene in Hereditary when you see the image on the post that she waxed her head on.
Yep, exactly.
I thought it was so clever. Like one of the kind of couple times when watching it leading up to this, I was like, oh, the flowers on the picture. I was like, I definitely am going to blow Calvin and Jane's mind. And then I think we talked about it before we recorded the first episode and you guys looked at me like, yeah, duh. It's right. It's in the middle of the frame. Like I was like, oh crap, I suck. Like, I'm a bad movie reviewer. Yeah, I do like stuff like that. When it can pop up in like little clever ways, and
Yes, it's very subtle. Yeah, it's not just like in your face though. Like you have to look for it.
I think I do have some issues with some of the way that Ari Aster does it. I think it's a little bit in Hereditary. He does it a couple times in this movie where it's just like he'll let the shot linger on something for a little while to like really let you know, like, hey, pay attention to this part. Like, you know, they have the Danny gets her medication out of the cabinet and it like holds on the medication for a really long time to let you know that she is on meds. And then after Danny's sister has killed herself, it goes to the laptop and it says she has 4 missed messages from Danny. But it's like literally one scene earlier we already know that Danny said that like, oh, I left her a bunch of messages. She's not answering. And so just stuff like that. I think he's so good at making a really clever movie. And then he has a couple shots. I'm just like, what are you doing? We know. Like, just keep going with your good stuff. And so, but I think the way he uses the flowers in this kind of, and the plants popping up here and there, it like lets you know, like it informs you on what's going to happen later on in the film. And so I think that's him being clever in his filmmaking.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely changes if you perceive the way the emails were sent and stuff in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Because like personally, I don't think that her sister sent those emails.
I suppose we have theories to get into later.
Yeah.
So maybe that will change my perspective on that. But
So-
I just know I see scenes like that. I'm like, bummer, man, you were doing so good.
So there's a few things in those scenes that they're the obvious narrative thing that you're picking up on, but that's not actually the point in those scenes. So the email's giving you a timestamp as to how many messages had elapsed between the last one that Terry sent and the first one that Danny sent. The other important part of that shot is actually showing is that shot that moves into the room and it shows the yellow hose and Terry's yellow shirt. Yellows and blues are actually really important to I don't pay as much attention to color theory, and I don't think there's I could necessarily pick anything up on the multiple times unless I'd have to go through the whole film and look just for colors. But yellows and blues are very important as it relates to some of the other themes in the film. But that's part of why that is also there. The other part of why I think we hold on Danny taking the medication is because they're sleeping pills. And if you think of, again, how at the end of the film, how Danny had been taking sleeping pills the whole time while they were in Sweden, and then also thinking how now Christian is the one who was put to sleep, again turning over the fairy tale.
Man, she totally forgot to bring those with her though.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
She asked Josh several times.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
He can have a couple of his.
So I think that was it was just showing you specifically because it was Ativan, which I looked up is an anti-anxiety pill and especially helps for sleeping. So I think it's a thematic thing, and they wanted you to see specifically which one it was. And it was also because of the mirror there, because obviously we talked in part 1 about the repeated mirror images. So.
Yeah, I guess just for me, it lingered too long. I'd like to be like, this part's really important. Like, make sure you really capture this moment. So, and again, I don't have a problem with a lot of his shots lingering when they're interesting, but like just hanging on a pill bottle is not visually interesting to me. But we can move on from that. I don't have a ton of gripes about this movie. I think I got most of my gripes out in our part 1 where I described how much I don't like the characters. And that's honestly like that's about it. I don't have any more knocks against this movie really at all. Right.
And speaking of visually interesting elements, let's talk about like the tapestries and the murals, which is, I think, it's an interesting directorial choice that he makes in Hereditary, using the miniatures and the dioramas,
Yeah.
and then using a different art form here.
Right.
We start obviously like here's the whole movie with the first shot of the tapestry, which I think is awesome. I don't think it cheapens the movie in any way.
Especially like for a first viewing. I mean, because you don't know what's going on, and then so throughout the movie, it makes it like a, I don't know. It's like not like a game, but it's like, okay, I remember this image from the tapestry at the beginning. Like, let me see if I can try and find it later. This must be important. So it kind of helps. Not that you need help being engaged in this movie, because it really captured me, but it definitely helps me like, oh, I remember that from the beginning. Like, and so it's cool to go back and then like on second viewings, now I'm more aware and I'm better at picking out those parts again. So I agree with you. The idea of it being like that's an example of the movie not being spelled out to me, because it's just like neat little set pieces that I get to like then like kind of try to figure out as the movie goes on. So I like the beginning shot. What do you think of that one, Jaden?
I'm a fan of it. I think the tapestries all look cool in this. They're weird, funky art. Almost looks like a kid drew them.
Yeah.
Almost like Rune drew
Yeah,
them all.
probably. Fucking finger paint, dude. Oh my god. But no, I like that a lot. I like that it's obvious like what he's doing there, and like he's showing you the movie and stuff. But it's in not like, it's a clever way. It's not just like, hey, here's exactly what's going to happen. It's very vague, and I do think it keeps you intrigued in the movie as well.
Yeah, I guess I have trouble figuring out why that part works for me, and then the other kind of obvious stuff doesn't work for me. I don't know. I think maybe it's just because artistically, like I think it's neat. It's like you said, there's something visually intriguing about it.
It's very loaded too. It's not like you can go back, you can watch this movie 2 and 3 and 4 times and still come back and look at that painting and pick out something slightly different.
Yeah.
Right. I think maybe that's where I have where I notice a change in me, like why I can view one is like, this is boring and like I get it, and the other one is like, oh, like let me search this further. And maybe that's probably why it's like Jaden said, it's a really kind of weird style.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Like
yeah.
It's not like these like really like classic paintings or something you'd see. It's not like very well done. It does seem like you said, kind of childish in a way.
Like if a very talented like 4-year-old did this.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is going on the fridge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we think then about the love potion mural or tapestry? The one right when Simon and Connie are led away, and they ask, are we just not going to say anything about the bear?
Right.
Yeah.
I love that they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gross. There's that.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, but it works well. And then the scene where he does get the love potion in his drink or whatever, and in his food, is a little bit over the top. I think, like, as far as like,
because
okay,
we got
just
that.
saw this, like exactly what's going to happen. You don't have to spell it out so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's gross, and it makes me very uncomfortable, and I think that's a part of it. So
yeah, I absolutely agree with Jaden. My problem is not the tapestry at all. Like, because that's, again, it's like the beginning of the movie. I'm like, ooh, like, how is this going to play out? Like, okay, I'm interested now. And then it plays out in the most obvious way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
like there's a little leaf on his plate too to make sure, like, make sure we get it to him. Like,
yeah.
It's,
I think that could have been so much better. Like, if the camera has like all your characters in frame, and like he takes a bite and you just see him kind of in the background, like pull a hair out of his mouth and be like, make a face, and then kind of move on from it. And then you get like a wide shot of all their drinks, and you notice his is like a little more red, a little more pink than the other one. That's like all you need.
Well, and then they're like, is that a pube? Like, how the fuck do you know that right off the bat?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He has a beard.
Yeah.
Like, that's what.
And it's red.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So it could have been your own
Yeah. Okay, so like I have a beard, and for a while I had a German Shepherd. Like, my first assumption was it was probably from my face or my dog, not someone's genitals.
Yes.
Like,
just the first thing. That's a pube? Like, what? How do you know that, man?
Yeah.
But I think I agree. Like, I think what you're saying, Connor, I wouldn't have anybody react. I wouldn't focus too much on the cup. I would take the tapestry out, though, because I think there are enough subtle clues that because we already know, like, from that scene, we have Maya in focus at certain times looking at Christian. We already have established that Maya is in love with him, because this is before she's approved a mate, but she's put the rune underneath him. Obviously, we see her looking at him. She kicks him a couple times. All of that is built into that scene already. So we don't need the tapestry to really explain what necessarily is going on. We can just kind of assume, okay, his glass is a different color. something's in it, and a pube, and he pulls something out of his mouth. Could be anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of goofy in that way.
How do you not notice that your drink is like red and everyone else's isn't?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, pick a different colored drink for that night, like maybe tea or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
if people just like taking a sip or something and then like, whoa, this tastes fucking weird.
Yeah, just subtle
Yeah,
stuff.
like, I didn't know you guys served iron with all of your lemonade.
But it'd be good to like
Ironade.
I think those scenes all work better, like you said, Calvin. Like maybe if there is no tapestry and you just see little subtle things, or if you see the tapestry and then just the way the whole scene plays out, if it's just subtle, like maybe don't even have Christian, like don't even have him in like the center of the frame, have him like off to the side and have him doing that. Like that's what I like about this movie is like being able to go back through it and pick things out that I missed on previous viewings. And this scene I think could have been like really clever in that way. And it's like, okay, you're really on the nose on this one.
Yeah. And not only that is it on the nose and it's kind of annoying, it also doesn't matter to the plot. We don't actually need to know that this is happening because
he's already a piece of shit.
Yeah, he's already a piece of shit.
Yeah.
B, it has nothing to do with whether or not he's approved to mate with Maya or not.
Yeah.
Like the plot would go forward the exact same because what's actually happening.
And then they
like,
drug him later too before he does the thing. So it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just them infighting between the four of them. That's the whole point of that scene.
Yeah.
So loading that in there and making it more the point of rather than all of the interpersonal disagreements is
which I almost forget about.
Yeah.
You
forget about it, which is
just like, oh,
that's the
gross,
important part.
period blood in your drink.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a long meander from tapestries.
In short, I like the tapestries. There's one more. They have a lot of really cool like paintings and imagery in the like kind of the big barn.
Yeah,
like sleeping quarters they have.
The spring barn, the children barn. I say barn. That's actually the word for child in Swedish is barn.
Really?
So yeah. So
the barn.
Yeah.
I hope they call it that.
And that's with the script. That's just genius. This movie writes itself.
Yeah, I like. Again, I don't know how much all of it is directly supposed to be taken as like this is the story the same way the other tapestries are, but I think there's like some interesting stuff. Like Jaden pointed out a couple things that I didn't even notice.
Yeah, like so above Danny and Christian's bed, it like shows you what's going to happen to them at the end of the movie. It has the love scene with like the love scene involving Christian towards the end, and then the May Queen scene with Danny, and those are above their beds.
Oh, I missed those. There was one other one I saw that it shows a ritual where someone's cutting their hand.
Yeah,
that one isn't actually represented in the film.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be. I remember my first viewing, I was like, oh, that's going to happen.
Yeah,
and it doesn't.
Yeah, and I can kind of explain what I think some of those runes mean there later, but yeah, that one's. It's weird. That's why I didn't pick up on a lot of those other ones because they felt like they were superfluous.
Yeah. Well, and like, there's like nothing above Josh's bed. Like, there's no tapestry.
That's because
blank. It's because he literally does not matter.
Yes, he's a plot device.
Yeah.
Like
and they
we're
don't
not
show marks either because like who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I actually think his mother's probably the fool, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I like that scene a lot, or like all the art in it a lot because it makes me think. I'm assuming these people have many, many different rituals, not just the one that we see in this film. And so I like to think in my head, like my own canon for this is these are all different rituals that they do. We just don't understand them. We don't know the context for any of them.
Yeah.
Because it's not what this film isn't covering those rituals. But that's what I like to think is like this is like their history and their culture like all painted into this barn.
Oh, nice.
And like the idea of like, let's get the Midsommar spin-offs where
I was about to say it's literally the blueprint for the MCU, the Midsommar Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now that's a summer blockbuster. I would sit down for.
But yeah, that's when I see all that art, I'm like, oh, there's rich culture here, and it's all depicted like it's in their like living space, and I think it's really cool. I like again I think that's all a lot of visually interesting art in this, and that's why I do like the tapestries and a lot of the imagery in that. Yeah. Even though some of it seems on the nose, I think it's like dealt with in a cool enough way that I'm like intrigued by it.
Yeah, and so some of it is on the nose, and I think there's the subtle part actually comes from the runes. And so I did a lot of research into the Elder Futhark, which is what Pelle tells them is the runic alphabet that they use. And the Elder Futhark is, I mean, it's a lot of fun because it's a runic alphabet that represents individual phonemes, so the sounds, but they also have symbolic representations. And this is especially true for modern interpretations of these characters, specifically within certain occult and mystic circles. So another element of the fun is that they can have opposite meanings when depicted in an inverse position. And I say fun because it's fun in the sense of like etymology and like literary, academic research.
Yeah. If you're a nerd, it's fun.
Well, what I mean is
just
like,
kidding.
well, what I mean is like a lot of these symbols have been co-opted for white supremacist groups.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I mean like
Less
Fuck
fun.
yeah,
those
everybody-
people.
Much
yeah.
less fun.
all of the people that are sitting there like, wow, this idiot thinks this shit is fun. So no, I'm aware
Terrible
that like,
people do terrible things with not terrible things.
yeah, so a lot of this stuff has been brought into like Nazi occultism. There are white supremacist groups who use the symbol of Tiwas, which is the arrow pointing up,
Yeah.
representing the god Tyr. There's a lot of like Odinists that use these symbols as well.
What is an Odinist?
An Odinist is like a Scandinavian white nationalist.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Odinist sounds like something that shouldn't suck.
Yeah.
So
It-
does.
right?
And
I'm
that's,
kinda-
that's a bummer.
I'm kind of bummed that it's co-opted.
You guys
by
suck
that.
for taking that name.
Yes.
Pieces of shit.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is fun in an academic
Right.
research thing. So let's keep all of that in mind. So let's start with I think the first one that we see is the most obvious. It's the table. When everyone's sitting down just before at the stupa.
Where Pelly's drawing the table? Is that what you're talking
No.
about? No. Okay.
Where everyone's seated down.
Yeah,
Seated
okay.
down.
Sort
So
of
it's
that
like
top-down shot of the
Yeah.
table, yeah.
yeah,
And it's literally, I see what you're saying.
yeah, it's like a diamond with legs, and that's called Othala, and it's inherited property. And in this case, it's more the idea of inherited rituals. So, and a little fun fact about Etstupa is it literally is the means kin or clan or precipice. And so Etstupa is a ritual genocide or the killing of the elderly. And there are a few mentions of the practice in writings from Nordic antiquity. And now it's commonly used to refer to several cliffs found in Norway, Sweden, and Iceland.
Oh, that's a great fun fact.
Isn't that just so much fun in like a horribly morbid way? Yeah, it's stupid.
You supplanted me as fun fact guy. That was great. That's one of the best ones. That's really good.
Spent a whole week on this Wikipedia page.
I really like what you say about inherited rituals because you could see that as like all of your characters who show up with kind of their, I guess, like their Swedish guide that's brought them there. Because it's not just, Danny and her crew. There's other people like Simon showed up with his girlfriend, and it seems like there's people from outside.
There seems like there's a lot of people. I have a real big problem
And
with
they kind
that.
of all
like,
go away somewhere.
yeah. I wonder if they ate them all, kind
Yeah,
of.
right.
But like,
But like inheriting is like something that's given to you, like something that's like put upon you, and so it's
or
like
indoctrinated into.
yeah. So it's like to me, you could see them like them arriving here. It's like they're being kind of assimilated into this ritual. It's being put onto them. They're like inheriting kind of this aspect of the culture in a way, I think.
I wouldn't think of them as it. More of the everybody else at the table. They're kind of sitting down to be a part of it, but it's how At the Stupa passes down to the next generation. How Siv talks about like, when it's my turn, I will gladly give my life too.
Okay, well, I think I like that idea though. It's like maybe it's not something that you knew was coming to you, and you get to be a part of it, and you get to have this thing, and so like they didn't know maybe they were going to be a part of all this stuff. So I maybe my way of using the word inherited is just maybe I'm being a little liberal with it. But I kind of like the idea. I didn't think of it until just now. I just like that phrasing, and I think it kind of works like kind of for that idea.
Yeah.
All right, what other runes you got?
So then we also have Algis, which is it looks like a Y.
The dude stuck the landing. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh
like
my god, it so does.
yeah, like a little pitchfork. So it's widely agreed in academia that this is not its actual name, but it's derived from an Anglo-Saxon rune poem in Common Germanic, and it comes from the word for elk. But in its modern usage, beginning with early 20th century Germanic mysticism, it has come to mean life, and in the inverse, death. So when it's upside down and you have the fork pointed down, that means death. So you can think of the support beams for the walkways in the children's house
For sure,
are
yeah.
shaped this way. So that's all life. And then it's also a hidden form in the giant sun entry in the commune. But it's
Okay.
one of the supports for that. And then the inverse algis is one of the symbols on Christian's robe for his sex act with Maya.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the one on his left chest.
Yeah.
And then Tiwas is the arrow symbol. It's the god Tiwas or Tyr. It's associated with masculine power and energy, and it's the other symbol on Christian's robe on the right side. So you can kind of think of almost like a sacrificial sex thing
Yep.
for Christian there. So that's fun.
Okay, you're already capturing me with these runes. When you sent me the script and everything I'd written, I was like, okay, we're gonna let Calvin have his little bit here, and and I was like, he worked hard, and he gets to have his he gets to be on his soapbox and talk about runes. This is actually. I shouldn't be surprised that I'm interested in this. This is great research, and the way you've tied it all into the movie so far, this is really cool, actually.
Yeah, you see, isn't it a lot of fun? I'm having fun.
Yeah, no. Like I said, it's a lot of symbols and stuff that I don't think I would typically go in and be like, because I think I can look deep at a film and be like, oh, I can understand what's going on, kind of behind what I'm actually seeing. But then to have this extra level of this is just even another alphabet that I don't even know, and then to throw that in and these are even more symbols that on the surface, yeah, they just look cool, and I know they're Nordic, and so they fit.
Yeah.
But to actually have more background on it is super interesting.
Yeah. So obviously it's a part of the aesthetic, whether or not you care or not about these symbols. But I think that it's fun that he clearly did research on all of these, because then you also have Theu, which is wealth or cattle. It is I don't know, think of the fletching on an arrow, and it's the half of it. So just a line up and then two lines.
I think of it, it's
out.
an F, a capital F.
But the stuff moved down a little
It's a
bit.
capital F that's looking
Yeah.
up.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, there
exactly.
you go.
Yeah, it got uppercut.
Something flew over its head. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I want to hope that one of these descriptions, people are okay, I get that one.
Right,
What the
right.
fuck are these guys talking about?
So wealth or cattle, this is the symbol on Pellisfrock at the end. So it suggests that he has gained wealth or station within the community. And I think it can also be interpreted as the bringer of cattle, in this case, the sacrifices.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought
Yeah.
that one's
I definitely
fun.
think he wins in the end of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he does.
So
win.
yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense a
Yeah.
lot.
Then you have Ansus, which is literally means God. So it's an F facing down now.
Yeah, it's something crawled past its feet. It's
Yep.
like, whoa.
Oh,
Yep.
oh snap.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the
And-
F is all over the place.
So this one appears on Sieve's frock. She's the matriarch who we see throughout the film. It's and its derivative us and Aster, the plural of that, is literally the race of gods that would include Thor and Odin.
Okay.
So that's what's on. So you can obviously then she's the god basically incarnate of that. I think there's a lot of interpretations that you can think of Sieve's role in the community once you understand that symbol.
I think
Yeah.
I had mentioned that she's the master of ceremony. She seems like the leader of this group. So to have her kind of, and people look up to gods and they, so I think you could kind of, I don't know that I think of her as she's not an actual god among the community, but to look at her as someone a higher being and she's in charge. I think that works out well.
Or almost maybe even a prophet or
Yeah.
someone who
Who can
could
commune with the gods. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And
We
then
both did the same hand signal, from the heaven.
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
We both did the same thing.
it's all of that Christian upbringing that now we're channeling into our runic
Yeah.
practices.
I'm glad all that is being put to good use now.
And then we have Rairo, which is just a big R. It means it's literally the root word for ride that we have in English now. So it means ride or journey. And I should also mention that there are lots of interpretations of these runes out there that are in the mystical realm and stuff. These are all the interpretations that I took from a PhD on the subject. So this is literally the etymology of the word.
Okay.
So if you're ascribing any particular spiritual connotation with these, that's not what I'm talking about, except for a few of those cases, because I think because those actually get lost when we go from the elder Futhark to the younger Futhark. Some of these symbols disappear. So what we're left with really now, if we see them in the film, is we're left with whatever kind of meaning they have now in their modern interpretation, which is different than their etymology.
I thought you were going to be like, these are straight from the Wikipedia page, so you know it's accurate.
No, I also went
you
to...
can listen to me.
Yeah, no, I didn't just copy straight from Wikipedia. I also went to YouTube. So, like, this is like...
That's the two most legitimate forms of research you can do. So
yeah, exactly. So we are authorities.
I'm sure YouTube peer reviewed the Wikipedia page, so everything is accurate.
Yeah, exactly. So Raido is... it appears on the Runestone. There's lots of them at the Runestone. I'll explain the Runestone though, like at the stupa. It is also reversed on Dany's portrait from Pela on her dress, and I'll get to that in a moment. And then we also have this concept of bound runes. So bound runes are two runes overlaid to create conjoined meaning. So the most famous example of a bound rune is actually, I want to know if you guys can guess what it is.
Is it the Bluetooth symbol?
It's the Bluetooth symbol.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
I'm so smart.
Tossing a softball up by handing out the script before we record.
No, I did know that. I can't remember where I learned it, but I was like, why is the Bluetooth symbol so weird? But yeah, it's because it's it's a rune. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So those two runes are the transliterations of H and B from the younger Futhark, and they were literally the initials of a Danish king who's actually nicknamed Bluetooth.
That's so cool.
Well,
I want to have a neat nickname like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Bluetooth.
Yeah.
You have a Bluetooth?
Well, they don't know if he had like a dead, they don't know if he had like a dead tooth or if he had like he really liked the blueberries.
Oh.
That'd be
Blueberries
so
are all right, man.
Now it's all about wireless connections. Though, so.
That'd be so rad if you can pull off like having a dead tooth and get a cool nickname out of it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that king had all the swag.
So bound runes. So we have Gebo, which is the X, and that means gift. And then we have the diamond shape, and that means Ingwas, and it represents the god Ingwas or Fror. And Fror was the twin brother of the goddess Freya, and he's associated with virility, prosperity, and good harvest, as well as peace and pleasure. And he was represented by a phallic statue in the temple at Uppsala, which was a Norse religious center destroyed in the 11th century. Yeah, you thought you were going to get a whole episode through without talking about penises.
No, there's no way we could skip that.
So, and a name derivative of this rune is actually Ingmar, which is interesting when we see Ingmar below the rune in the temple after he volunteered.
No, you're so right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're sacrificing themselves as gifts for good harvest, prosperity, virility, penises at all. Like
So-
that's the whole point.
That's the one that Pele says is his brother, right? That's who Ingmar is.
yeah.
He's kind of a smaller character, so just to like reiterate who he is.
Yeah, so he's one of the ones. The larger one, the one that gets set on fire first. That's Ulf.
Which is the one who gets mad at Mark for peeing on the tree.
Is it? I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
It's also it's supposed
The
to be
blonde fella?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be that
They're
he's
all blonde.
That's not true. Some of them are less blonde.
he's also supposed to be the one in the Mark like skin suit
Okay.
because he got mad about the tree, so he killed him and then skinned the fool. So
Gross.
I mean, I guess you wouldn't know that. I think it's Ari Aster said it or something. It was in like an interview or something I read that he's the one who did the deed, and that happens off screen, which is such a bummer.
Yeah,
and then
such a
he
bummer.
shows up with the skin on. So
Yeah. Okay, and so then our next
That guy got cast as Adam Warlock or whatever. Or no.
oh yeah, Will Poulter.
Yeah, he's
Something.
I can't remember the freaking comic book character's name now, but
Adam Warlock, like from Marvel.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, it is Adam Warlock. I wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't
For
see
Guardians
that?
of the Galaxy 3, yeah.
Why? Oh, I hate that. Adam
He
Warlock.
kind of looks like him in the comics. He's got similar eyebrows, bro.
the kid who plays Mark is gonna play Adam Warlock.
from Meet the Millers,
Yeah.
who sings the TLC song.
From
Yeah.
Bandersnatch.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't love that casting. Hopefully they prove me wrong on that one.
I mean,
I think he's fine. I think he does like good because I like what's that road trip one? Meet the Millers. We're the Millers.
Yeah,
I think that
movie's
one's funny.
Yeah,
And I think he's good in it.
he gets bit in the penis.
Yeah. And I think he plays his role right in this. I don't know if I like him as Adam Warlock is supposed to be like this all powerful being who like rivals Thanos. Like
Yeah,
Oh, that definitely screams Will Poulter.
it's
energy.
exactly what I'm saying. It's like that feels like a miscast. But we'll get back to Midsommar.
Okay, and so then another symbol that we have is Pjorth, which is like a bracket. It looks like a little bracket with like
it's like a frame clip.
yeah.
It looks like a
Or
coffee
staple.
table leaned up against a wall.
Yeah, or a staple that where the legs bent out.
Yeah, where you flip the little thing on there.
I love how we all have a different interpretation. It's
Yeah.
Whoever's listening is like, God damn it.
I love how we're trying to do this. A podcast was the wrong format for this episode.
That's
Or
how
it's just like a C with some squiggly lines.
Yeah. But so the modern meanings of this rune are mystery, hidden things, or uncertain things, which is hilarious to me because we literally don't know what this rune means. So
It's kind of a really self-aware, like,
yeah, like someone was like, it means mysterious things.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's unknown. That's what we were trying. That's why we wrote it that way.
yeah.
Yeah. So we don't even know how it's pronounced exactly. So we just it's Pjorth. Yeah.
That sounds like something that should be in the English language because it's so crazy.
Yeah.
And everything is so like so much stuff doesn't make sense. We should have a word that's like we don't even really know how to say it. Everyone just says it wrong all the time.
Yeah.
Worcestershire.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Worcestershire. Sorry, we're gonna get off a little bit. There's this really great meme, and it's like a trailer, a semi full of Worcestershire sauce, like tips over on the highway, and police arrive at the scene. They're calling it in, and the chief at the station's like, "What's going on? What's happening there?" He's like, "It's hard to say, boss." It's a great meme. Sorry, back to the rune.
That's funny. One other rune I do want to point out. There is a Josh's foot has a rune carved on the sole of it when it's sticking up out of the garden. Whether it's carved or painted, it doesn't really matter. And the most common answer online as to what rune it is Ansu's, which because it means intelligence or knowledge or whatever, and that was what he was killed for. Ansu's is the rune that Sieve had on it. I just want to point out that it is not Ansu's. I don't know who the fuck wrote that because it is very clearly not that symbol. But the problem is you can't tell whether it's either there's Dagas, which is like an hourglass shape, or Manas, which is like an M, like out of the hourglass shape. And Manas means man, Dagas means day. So neither one of those things really makes sense. It's just his foot has a rune on it.
Right.
Yep, it's interesting and cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and if that's how you come away from all of this stuff, like, you probably could have skipped the last very long. This is turning out to be a much longer section.
I like
I
it.
like it a lot too. Actually, I'm learning a lot, and I'm very intrigued. It is fun, Calvin.
Yeah,
I know I made fun of you for it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna get called out later by you guys, especially because I made such a big deal about like in Hereditary where the coven symbol is on the telephone pole. And I'm like, yeah, it's in the middle of the frame. How do you miss it? But then like I didn't even notice there was a rune carved into his leg or his foot.
Oh, really?
And it's in the middle of the frame. So here I am looking like a big idiot.
Exactly.
So
And it's in red. So
I think part of it is I was just like so freaked out by like that imagery.
yeah, his foot growing up out of
Because
the front.
Chris runs up on it and you just see it like kind of pops up into the foreground.
Christian.
Christian, that's it. It's Christian, yeah.
We're abbreviating his. He
Yeah.
doesn't get a
We're
nickname.
pals.
We're buds.
No,
He
we're
doesn't-
not pals
yeah.
with him.
No.
But yeah,
Nicknames
so
for people we like.
Yeah, if anything, I'll call Danny Dan.
yeah.
Yeah, D.
But I think part of that is just the imagery is I'm just like, oh, like creepy. And so I'm not like really, I didn't really like look for the rune. And I'm going to watch it again and be like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. It's right there.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clear that up by saying I have no idea. So
That's fine.
Yeah. So that's what that means. So now we're going to get to Danny's runes, which are very important. And the first time that we're going to start, the first time that you do see reversed runes. So when Pella gives her self-portrait and on her frock, you see both Raido and Dagas, but you see Raido in reverse. So And then Dogos is also the normal Dogos would be an hourglass turned on its side. So we have Dogos turned upright, and that's actually Dogos literally means day, and it's symbolic.
I guess you couldn't reverse the hourglass symbol; it would look the same both ways.
So that's actually the thing. Some people don't think that there is an inversion of that symbol, because all of the other ones are complete 180s. So the fact that it's only 90 degrees. How do we ascribe meaning necessarily when all of the other ones have a different form?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of intuitive to think of like, well, we can't.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't literally do a 180, so it would. So this is the next best thing. I think.
You could do 90 degrees with all of the other ones, so that would mean that there are 90.
Well, this one probably came out after they had that idea. We're like, we're not going all the way back to the beginning to restart this language.
They're like,
dude.
we've written so many other runes already.
So yeah, it means means day, and it's symbolic of awakening or planning. And while the inverse and what we see here implies ending or hopelessness. So the bow tie shape being the normal one, and the hourglass is the inversion. And then the inverse of Raido has symbolic meaning, modern day again, meaning of crisis, death, or injustice. So those are her symbols. Which I think are just fascinating.
Those spell out her character perfectly.
Exactly.
Like the two kind of how she starts the film and then how she ends the film. That's beautiful.
Well, I wouldn't even say
how it works out that way. Like, I mean, obviously, like you said, there's just research that went into these runes. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah, and I also think it says something about the ending. I don't think that there is actual hope or achievement or catharsis in the end for her specific character, but I think people can take that away from this, and I think we'll get to our more personal interpretations of this after that.
Right.
After this, so then we get to the Runestone, and so this has everything. So now we can look at this because we know all of them. So it's the one where the woman wipes her bloody hands on it, and it has 4. So there are 9 runes total. Like a tic-tac-toe board. So you have 4 X's or gebos in the corners. The center line is Raido, Tiwas. So journey or ride twice, and then Tyr symbol. So he's either the main god that they worship, or it's symbolic of masculine energy or power or something. At the top, you have the inverted algis, or the death symbol, and at the bottom, you have Pjorth, which has come to mean hidden meaning, since we don't know what it means. So taken all together, it says something like they've gone through their journey of life and now give the gift of their life to their god for some secret ritual, which is what Steve says. So I don't know if this matters at all. You know, you could just have like cool whatever and they don't mean anything. But the fact that they literally represented it again is kind of fun.
No, that second layer makes it authentic, you know, because I wonder if you'd have nerds like you who go back and be like, oh, let me figure out what these runes mean. And then if you went out and, you know, you figured out what they all mean, and then you tell us in this podcast, you're like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. They just put random runes on there. Yeah. You're like, oh, bummer.
Yeah, it actually just spells out like fuck Harvey Weinstein.
I would like that hidden message, actually. That's
that
great.
would be, I think that's subtext that everyone could get behind.
I actually like that. But yeah, no, I like that. It's the story. It's just spelt out in another way. And if you want to dive deeper, which is what this episode's all about, I love hearing that stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, or all of these symbols could just represent the phonemes or the sounds that they make. They could just be everyone's initials. Like Pella has one name and one initial. Steve has one name and one initial. Danny Arder has 2 names and 2 initials. Those phonemes are not actually represented, wouldn't be good transliterations into English, as they're not D and A. But I don't think that's actually the case here, because they're used in too many places as individual symbols, and several are shown with their inverted positions. So I think it's better to look at them all symbolically. But I think you could take away from that these are people's names, because like when you think of the little bingo lottery they had, the ball that came out for Tubjorn, like it's just a couple runes. So.
Right. That bit of like having that in the scene, I don't know why it feels like it doesn't fit at all. Because it does. It looks like a bingo thing. But this is supposed to be some like big time. This is like their big ritual that happens every 90 years. And they're like, let's get the bingo roller out.
Yeah. and Tubjorn's like, oh, bingo.
Yeah. I don't know. That part doesn't fit. I feel like they would use something like more, I don't know, symbolistic, ritualistic, something more like mystical would happen than like
Yeah.
get the ball. Get the
Yeah,
ball
maybe they
down.
were just trying to spice this one up, man. Like,
Yeah. They were
hey,
like,
let's get
I
these
bet.
kids, enjoying this game.
Yeah,
You know, it's-
I kind of want to know like how many like things like people brought back from their pilgrimage, and they're like, you guys gotta play this game.
Or they're like,
We can gamble with our lives now.
they're like, you remember that really dumb, convoluted way we
fucking
used to do lottery?
bingo.
Yeah, we no longer have to bake bones and wait for them to crack. We can just play bingo.
Okay, I like that part now.
Yeah. So
Are we wrapping up runes?
that's all of the. There are more runes. Just not a whole lot more that I care about, and I just really wanted to decode the Runestone more than anything. I'm kind of sad that was the least interesting out of all of the runes to actually unpack.
For like me especially, anyone who thought that this wasn't going to be worth listening to, don't tune out for the rune part. I'll timestamp and everything. This is super interesting. I'm really glad you went through and figured all this out. That's so cool.
I'm so glad because I probably spent like between 10 and 15 hours.
oh my goodness gracious.
Reese-
Yeah.
Bravo, Calvin. That was great. All right, so we talked about bears. We covered runes, which was fascinating.
Yeah, definitely didn't ruin the movie for me.
It didn't ruin the movie.
Yeah.
That's great. So yeah, we are gonna make this a 3-parter. I think we kind of teased at that maybe when we first started.
Yeah, I wasn't actually. I did a lot of research. It's like, no, I need to be on my soapbox because like, I need some time. I didn't think that this was going to be as you would find this as compelling as you did, like in a way of engaging with it. Normally, it's
It's
like,
fascinating.
yeah. Sometimes I say like a lot of stuff, and you're like, oh, he's done.
No, never. But yeah, so thank you for joining us for part 2. We're going to put out a part 3, and that's going to cover more like theories, some foreshadowing, and then ultimately our wrap-up of the film. So yeah, so I'm excited. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Connor. I have my co-host, Jaden.
Yee.
And forum guest, Calvin.
Thanks for having me back.
And thanks for listening to Now This Is Podcasting.